Hello friends. So we have completed the study of the fifth chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and in today's video I will be providing you the summary of all the teachings that have been provided by Sri Krishna in this chapter. So the fifth chapter of Bhagavad Gita starts off by Arjun asking a question to Sri Krishna, wherein he asks, which one is better? Is it the sannyas karma or is it yoga karma? Over here, sannyas karma is the work where a person performs it by renouncing everything, while the yoga karma is the action which is performed when a person performs it by remaining consistent with the inner divinity which is present inside all of us. And so, Shri Krishna then answers the question of Arjun by saying that both the paths actually bring credit, but amongst these two, the path of Yoga Karma is special when compared with the path of Sannyas Karma. And the reason behind that Shri Krishna mentions is that most people, they do not really have a very good understanding, and they also do not have a very controlled mind wherein they can perform sannyas karma, and because of that it is better to start off with the yoga karma. So the idea over here that basically Shri Krishna mentions is that the process of renouncing everything is something that most people are not really able to understand. People think that renunciation basically means that the person just goes to the forest and performs penances over there, or the person just offers something to God and says that okay, this is what is renunciation. So most people confuse this, and because of that, Shri Krishna is basically telling Arjun that it's better that you perform the go on the path of yoga karma, because the path of yoga karma as such is easier to follow, and as you follow that, then you will automatically be following the path of sannyas karma. So the point that Sri Krishna tells Arjun is that both the paths are actually good paths, but amongst these two, it's easier for you to follow the path of yoga. And if you will follow the path of yoga karma, then you will, anyways, be getting into the path of sannyas karma also. Then he basically describes what actually is sannyas karma in the truest sense, and what he mentions is that sannyas does not really mean that you go into a forest and you perform penances over there, or sannyas means that you just go to a temple and offer some small thing over there. That is not what sannyas karma actually is. Sannyas karma basically is to renounce the ego in itself and become one with the divinity. And the person who follows the path of yoga, which is basically performing an action by remaining consistent with the inner divinity that is present inside us, will by in itself inculcate or will include the path of sannyas itself, because then a person uh, discards his own ego and he becomes one with the divinity which is present inside all of us. And such a person then performs his actions not to please his ego but to please the divinity, and that divinity is present inside all of us. And so such a person, then he starts seeing same divinity present in all beings, and therefore they behave in the same manner with all beings, in the sense that they realize that all beings are divine, and therefore there is divinity present inside all of us. And they do not really make a distinction of okay, oh, this is a king, this is a brahman, this is a shudra, or this is a vaishya, or things like that. He sees the same divine entity present inside all beings. And by renouncing his own ego, the person becomes one with the divine, and all his actions then are not to satisfy his ego, but they are to basically do good to all the beings which are present, and that is where they find the real satisfaction in the good of all beings. And then in the end, Sri Krishna then delves into the path of how to control your mind, because the person who can behave like this must have a very strong control over your mind, because if the mind is not in control, then the ego is going to take over, and if the ego is going to take over, then it's basically just going downhill from there. So the person who is behaving in sannyas, the true sannyas, wherein he has given up his ego and he does not identify with his body, he realizes that he is just a traveler in this body in itself. To really have that realization and to live like that, you need to have a very disciplined mind. And so Sri Krishna then starts describing that, and that is what is now going to go further into chapter 6 also, wherein Shri Krishna then tells Arjun how to control your mind by controlling the breathing and cutting off the external senses, because it's the external senses which actually bring these feelings of attachment and aversion and things like that. And so a person uh, who really wants to be a sannyasi and who really wants to behave in yoga karma, he gives up all of these senses, and he shuts down these external senses, and then he breathes, he controls his breathing, and by controlling his breathing, he can then stop from going to the sympathetic nervous system, which is the response to the external senses, and can stay in his parasympathetic nervous system, which is the state of a extreme satisfaction, which is our own nature, and that person can stay over there. So he starts off by telling that, and then he gradually is now going to go and talk more about this dhyan yoga, which is also called as Raj Yoga. And he ends this chapter by telling that, know me to be the Lord of this entire creation, know me to be the friend of all beings, and by knowing that, you can then basically attain eternal peace, is what he tells in the last chapter. And he says that he is the one who is the real enjoyer of all the actions that have been performed in this creation. And so a wise person should realize that in reality he is nothing, in that sense that he is not the doer. He's not really doing anything, eating or seeing and things like that. It's not he who is the doer, it's the body which is doing these things, and he is the one who is the divine entity, and he is one with that divine entity, which is the real consumer of all the actions that are going over here, and he's the friend of everyone, and he's the one who is the lord of this entire creation. And so all our actions actually should be to please this divinity which is inside us and which is inside all the beings which are there, and we should act in that manner, and then only we can attain peace. So Shri Krishna ends the chapter with that. So I hope that I have explained chapter 5 well to you. With that, I will close this video. In tomorrow's video, I'm going to be presenting the quiz with relation to this chapter, and I recommend you to take part in that and revise all the teachings that will be presented in this chapter. So uh, I will present that in the next video. I'll close this video over here. Take care.